Oh, good day, family. Yeah, I took me a short nap tonight, but I had to get up because I was sleeping good. Yeah, I was finna teleport on us, but I've had a little rest, and it was good. Good rejuvenation. And when we have to, take you a break. When you got to, take you a break. It ain't nothing wrong with it. The fight gonna be here. Been here. Get your water, your teas, family. Oh, I tuned into some really good lives today. Yes, they were phenomenal. But let me tell you, and one of the lives actually was talking about the Nile River. It mentioned it briefly, a couple of times, briefly, but they spoke about the Nile River, and it just reminded me what I found on my little hiatus. When I wasn't here the past few days, y'all, let me show you this. I may have already shown it to you. I showed it to someone. But remember when we first started reading and learning, and we learned about Anthony Browder, and they showed us that timeline? I think I showed this. Maybe not, because I just really came back. But look at this, y'all. And I was telling y'all the ancestors were going to give us that timeline. They didn't give us that particular timeline, but they gave us this timeline. And this timeline right here, y'all, it's huge. I will have to actually show this to you up close during one of our noontime lessons. And it is of the Nile River, the great rivers of the world. And it is huge. It actually, this huge apartment, it covers from that wall down. So I have to put it up. I have to put it up so we can look at it. But yeah, before I actually put it into the girls, into the grandchildren's library, we're going to look at this. Look at Nefertiti. Look at Nefertiti. That is beautiful. That is so beautiful. I was so grateful when I saw this, but I didn't know it was the timeline. I thought it was just the book, which is even better. The book is awesome. But then when I got home and opened it up, it was the actual timeline. I knew it was a book that I wanted for them, but I didn't know it had an extra bonus to it. So yeah, this is beautiful. It's a huge timeline of the great rivers of the world. That's actually it. When you open it up, that's gonna be it right there. So yeah, we'll get to this right here. I just wanted to show it to you because I haven't even put it up or anything. I just when I brought it home, I looked at it. I don't think I've even shown it to the grandchildren because they're gonna want to get into it. And yeah, so I just wanted us to see that right there. Our ancestors do answer us. All we have to do is just speak to them, talk to them. They'll answer us. They'll give us an answer. They'll show us the way, give us clues. Yep, vengeance belongs to them, to our ancestors too. I know our Bible teaches us, y'all Bibles teaches you that, and it was, I guess it was mine at one point too. But now I got a whole new Bible that I live by, that I go by, that guides my spirit. And that's the Black Bible. We all know. Red Summer. Yep, Red Summer and light books. Like and similar. Racial violence in Kentucky, 100 years of lynching. All of these are our Black Bibles. We got to start reading them. We got to start studying them, understanding them. This is what we need. So that right there is my Bible. And this right here is y'all's Bible. Or, whichever one you choose, because there are many different denominations. I was in a couple of them myself before I realized that I'm not even religious. I'm not even religious. Here we go with this again, huh? Come on, get out. Oh, I need some air in it. No. So we are starting a new book tonight, y'all. I thank you so much for hanging in there with me and let me know that I can do it too. You know, I just try not to be too hard on myself. Take a break when I need to. But we starting Red Record tonight. Yeah, this is Ida B. Wells. We started Ida tonight. I did read some of it on my time off, but we're going to start it from the beginning. And this is our first book by Ida. She has a couple, actually. But let's get the fundamentals out the way. I am Face the Nation. We're on Bolden Unchained, and we're here to assist Black America. We're here to assist Black America. If that's not why you're here, you're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong room. This ain't the lesson for you. And that's okay. That's okay. It's dozens out there, hundreds out there that's teaching us on some level of this awakening we're going through. So you don't have to be here. You don't have to be here. The ancestors, cosmic energy will send you where you need to be. And if you meant to come back to where I am, then you can. Then you can. We all just have lessons to learn. And it's not going to be where it might be a little entertaining. It might be a little more interesting and a little less, I don't know, stoic, you know, here or there. But just be where it resonates with you and you getting the best benefit that you can get out of it. Everybody know things that are entertaining. We get some benefit out of it, even if it's a laugh. But make sure you getting the best benefit out of where you at, where you spending your time at. Because we really don't have time to waste and be in places and stuff where we ain't really learning nothing, you know, to elevate ourselves. Not to say that you won't learn anything here or there, because all of it is worth learning. But you got to be on time with it. You know, if you know you still in that forgiving era and that's what your heart resonates and stuff, then you probably don't want to be here. I'm probably going to be a whole lot irritating to you. And I don't want to do that to you and stuff, you know. But anyway, I digress. I am Face the Nation. We're on Bolden Unchained to assist Black America with uncovering, y'all, the many agendas, events, projects, laws, codes, acts. It's so many arrows in our backs. I had no idea. Sometimes I can't even remember all of them. You got memorandums, courses, literal courses. And I just learned this a few months ago. I ain't been here for like 6 months, but it was like maybe 2 or 3 months ago. There was a sister and she had gone to a college. And the college actually had a course on studying Black women, Black women's brains, on how did we survive and tolerate and excel through all that we've been through. And so that it's a course. They got memorandums. It's just really insane to come and think about it and stuff. We are the greatest study on the planet, on this planet. Yeah. And so that's why we're here. I am not religious. You know, I did believe in it, and now I do even have a little bit more tolerance for it. At first, I was under the impression that we should just let it go because we ain't really using it like we need to, but it's been in our lives. It's saved lives. It's given us hope. It's different from what it was initially helping us, because our ancestors knew exactly how they were using the Bible that was forced on them, religion that was forced on them, as opposed to us just taking it, being sincere and running away with it. We just running with it. So there is a difference to it, but I'm at the opinion now that keep it. You got 2 arms. Keep it under one arm, but you damn sure better put the Black Bible under the other one. This is what we need to be studying now. It's time to elevate. It's time to elevate. I forgot who that was that said or taught me that our oppressors, our open enemy, are not going to give us what we need to succeed. And it ain't this right here either. No, it ain't this right here either. They've polluted this, and I don't know, it's so complex. It's got so many contradictions in it. It's hard for us to distinguish because we ain't, as far as I'm concerned, and I can see, we haven't delved into any of the contradictions in the Bible. and what it means for us. Yeah, my people, we know you tell us that time and time again that the Bible is about us. Jesus is black. However, all of that into consideration and stuff, us as a people, we've literally memorized it. The scriptures that we need to go to survive day to day. We haven't studied the Bible for the afterlife. All we know is we want to get to heaven. We just been misled with a lot of things, and the culmination of them is that we don't know what we need to know. That's why I'm here, my people. We need to know these things. I just wanted to know simply why we can't get along too. Why we can't get along. Everybody was asking the question, why can't Black Americans get along with each other? What's our problem? And I wanted to know too, because wasn't nobody really saying why we don't get along with each other. We can't come together. So yeah, I want to know why. And that's why I'm here. And it looked to me like it's white America. If it changes, I'll let you know. But at this point in time, it seemed like it's white America that has been the culmination, the whole root of our disconnect with each other, with our history. We've been so disconnected. And that's what I think it is. Going back to the Black Bible, yeah, this is it right here. This is our Black Bible. We got Black Jesuses. We got Black Jesus. It's right here in the book. And you know, I'll show it. I'll show it. Willie Brown, right there in the book. That's our Black Jesus right there. You see him on the wood? You see that kindling? You see that cross under him? It's time for us to elevate. Jesus Christ, as we see him, know him, and learned him, the white man, Cesareo Borgia, is good and fine and dandy. You done fell out, you done fainted, you done threw up, you done cried and followed him and stuff. Now, Black America, it's time for you to give some of that energy, some of that acceptance and whole belief in Black Jesus. Your own Black Jesus. You got your own Black Jesus. Matter of fact, we just finished a whole century of nothing but your Black Jesuses. One after the other, one after the other. And this is just one book. We ain't read about 6 books, but you got your own Black Jesuses now. Allegedly 2025, we know some things that we didn't know, and we got to take them into consideration. All of that we've read has just shown us that it's time to elevate. It's time for us to elevate. We ain't against other people. I'm not against other people. They've lived fat on the hog. That's fine and dandy. Stay where they at. Keep that same energy, because it's about too late to turn around and say, hey, we still love Black America and want the best for Black America, because ain't nobody still said it. What the problem is in this country. And it ain't us. No, it ain't us. And nobody still said it. White folks themselves know that they are the problem and still refuse to say it. Still refuse to say it. It's unbelievable. I'm just so appalled and just want us to get the fuck away from them. Let's just get away from them. Do for ourselves. Life as we know it anyway is over. This is what we get for putting our trust in everything all across the board in white folks. Letting them run everything. Letting them have control of everything. Once we gave up our successes, our goals and aspirations, what we have achieved and built up. And once we gave that up, that let them take the reins and build everything up. So now that's why we're here in this fucked up situation in America. You don't know if a missile finna come through or a meteor. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So yeah, I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. I don't forgive anything that happened to my ancestors. I don't forgive none of it. I thought I did, but once I started reading, I don't forgive nothing. And learning, Dr. Francis Chris Wilson said I don't have to. It ain't for my good to forgive them. It ain't for my good to forgive them. That's for them. See, that's the brainwashing. That's the brainwashing. So we're here to learn these things because they're very critical at this time in our life. Like always, they're very critical. We at a crossroads now. We are literally in a crisis. I should have wrote that down when I seen it, and I forgot who said it. But they said we are in a crisis, y'all. Black America. Yeah, And we can look at it and tell we're in a crisis. Who's I listening to? Defiant Lawyers Network and Dr. Claude Anderson in our book we started today, On the Shoulders of Giants, was reading the same book. And Dr. Claude was saying that, yeah, powernomics. We got the same lowly amount of ownership in this country that we had when we left the plantations. Half of 1%. Half of 1%. Just like I said, it feels to me like we going into this new world order with nothing, just like we left those plantations and came to this integration, whatever you want to call it, with nothing. Now we're going into another integration, new world order, futuristic world. Who the fuck knows what this is going to be? With nothing. Because we let our guard down and we put our trust and everything in white America. And now the whole world might blow y'all asses up. Just blow it up. So my main concern is us. I hope everybody else get to their bunkers that they got. Hope everybody else be okay for themselves and their people. But for us, I'm concerned about us. We my first and final concern. Yeah, we'll let somebody in our little bus bunkers. But I'm here for us. I ain't trying to harm nobody, hurt nobody. I ain't trying to inspire or motivate you to either, because we're not them type of people. We are not like our open enemies. We're not here to harm nobody and stuff. We just want to make sure our people are okay. Our people maintain and sustain our life on this planet too. Now, don't act like everybody don't know we've been extincted right out of here. All of these agendas, everything that's going on is to get rid of us. Don't act like folks don't know. Now, I didn't know because hell, shit, I was blind. I'm talking about us. We don't know because we are brainwashed, but other groups of people, oh, they know. They know. They just glad your ass don't. So let's get started with the fundamentals. Let me turn on my little fan right here. I know I just turned off the air, but yeah, menopause is coming. And believe it or not, I've been waiting on her ass too. So, yeah, I'm spiritual. We looking through a spiritual lens of loyalty, resilience, and education. Because you need to know who the hell are you loyal to. Black America. You don't know. You ain't known in a long time who you need to be loyal to. You're falling for anything. We've been falling for anything. Myself too. I don't follow a lot of trends and celebrities and stuff, but I'll go along with the peers and stuff I have for 43 years. Shit. I went along with my peers and stuff that we was okay. Everything was all right. We was equal now, but we ain't. We are not. Matter of fact, I got a book over there now. We Are Not Equal by Tanya Bolden. We are not yet equal by Tanya Bolden. We just not, y'all. And we're not going to be equal with them. They're going to make sure that we never get equal with them. White America is. So we need to just go ahead and surpass their motherfucking asses and do for us. Do for us. And it don't mean that the things that we're going to create and invent are going to be against them. Everything that our ancestors created, everyone uses it. Every motherfucking body uses it. They stole it, they took it, they advanced it, they got paid off of it, they prolonged it, passed it on. So it ain't like what we're going to create and contribute to this life, humanity and mankind, is only for us and stuff. Best believe everybody going to be using it. You know, so yeah, but I'm spiritual. I hope you are too. If you ain't, learn to get back to your roots. We're spiritual people. We are spiritual people. So let's do the copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. So we can do this. We can teach each other. We can get on here on these platforms and start letting us know. It don't matter what you're doing. You can be cleaning out your refrigerator. We still need you. We need you to get out there and inspire, because a lot of us are depressed, sad, just lazy as hell, don't want to get in there and clean out the refrigerator. Just do it. Inspire somebody. I don't know. Show us our people how you organize your refrigerator. Just get on there and just do it. Start talking, then we'll get used to it, hopefully. It takes some time because I'm still getting used to it. But everything take time that you're going to do and you're going to get used to and stuff. So let's get some shout outs and then we're going to start reading Ida. I know. As soon as I seen this, I'm glad y'all mentioned it. As soon as I seen it, I went ahead and ordered it. It's on Amazon. All of our latest books are on Amazon. So yeah, well, I don't see anybody. I'll come back and see who I can give some shout outs to. But until then, let's read The Red Record by Ida B. Wells Barnett. And I know some Barnetts too. I definitely do. Tabulated statistics and alleged causes of lynching in the United States. I like it too. I like the color. It's small and compact. You can take it with you anywhere. Just don't forget it because it's so small and compact. Oh, and this was written in 1895, y'all. Preface, Honorable Frederick Douglass's letter. Dear Miss Wells, let me give you thanks for your faithful paper on the lynch abomination now generally practiced against colored people in the South. There has been no word equal to it in convincing power. I have spoken, but my word is feeble in comparison. You give us what you know and testify from actual knowledge. You have dealt with the facts with cool, painstaking fidelity and left those naked and uncontradicted facts to speak for themselves. Brave woman, you have done your people and mine a service which can neither be weighed nor measured. If the American conscience were only half alive, if the American church and clergy were only half Christianized, if American moral sensibility were not hardened by persistent infliction of outrage and crime against colored people, a scream of horror, shame, and indignation would rise to heaven wherever your pamphlet shall be read. But alas, even crime has power to reproduce itself and create conditions favorable to its own existence. It sometimes seems we are deserted by earth and heaven, yet we must still think, speak, and work, and trust in the power of a merciful God for final deliverance. Very truly and gratefully yours, Frederick Douglass, Cedar Hill, Anacostia, D.C. That was to Ida from Frederick. A merciful God. I digress. Chapter 1, the case stated. And there is no introductions and nothing like this. Ida just cut straight to the chase for us. Yeah, our sister. Mm-hmm. The student of American sociology will find the year 1894 marked by a pronounced awakening of the public conscience to a system of anarchy and outlawry. Outlawry, like outlaw. Outlawry, which had grown during a series of 10 years to be so common that senses of unusual brutality failed to have any visible effect upon the humane sentiments of the people of our land. Beginning with the emancipation of the Negro, the inevitable result of unbridled power exercised for 2.5 centuries by the white man over the Negro began to show itself in acts of conscienceless outlawry. During the slave region, the Southern white man owned the Negro body and soul. It was to his interest to dwarf the soul and preserve the body. Vested with unlimited power over his slave, to subject him to any and all kinds of physical punishment, the white man was still restrained from such punishment as tended to injure the slave by abating his physical powers and thereby reducing his financial worth. While slaves were scourged mercilessly, and in countless cases inhumanely treated in other respects, still the white owner rarely permitted his anger to go so far as to take a life, which would entail upon him a loss of several $100s. They'll beat him bad, whip him, sometimes even maim him if they can't help it. But even a main slave was put to work. What? They just didn't want to kill him. Because then you couldn't get no money out of him. Come on in here. Come on. Get in your house. Get in there. Be no good. Hold on for a minute, y'all. I just had to let him in. It's sprayed in the camera. We're not even going to do this now. Okay, I apologize about that. While slaves were scourged mercilessly and in countless cases inhumanely treated in other respects, still the white owner rarely permitted his anger to go so far as to take a life, which would entail upon him a loss of several $100s. The slave was rarely killed. He was too valuable. It was easier and quite as effective for discipline or revenge to sell him down south. And even though it's saying that slavery was very horrific, it wasn't nothing compared to what they did after slavery. During them 100 years of lynchings. But emancipation came, and the vested interests of the white man in the Negro's body were lost. The white man had no right to scourge the emancipated Negro. Still less, he has a right to kill him. But the Southern white people had been educated so long in that school of practice in which might makes right that they disdained to draw strict lines of actions in dealing with the Negro. In slave times, the Negro was kept subservient and submissive by the frequency and severity of the scourging. That's S-C-O-U-R-G-I-N-G, scourge, scourging. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Scourging. But with freedom, a new system of intimidation came into vogue. The Negro was not only whipped and scourged, he was killed. So that's at the point where it went from enslaving and the mask and whipping to outright beast nature. Outright beast nature. Not all, nor nearly all of the murders done by white men during the past 30 years in the South have come to light. Not all of them, not nearly all of them have come to light. But the statistics as gathered and preserved by white men and which have not been questioned show that during these years, more than 10,000 Negroes have been killed in cold blood. 10,000. Now, didn't I see in the EJI, the Equal Justice Initiative? Shut your mouth. That it was like 3,400 and something. And now we read in this book, because see, I was just skipping around in this book right here. But now when we reading them, we ain't just skipping around. Oh yeah, I'm looking for something to put over you, honey. Because you ain't finna sit here with this. And now Ida is telling us that it was 10,000. It wasn't 3,000, 4,000. And come to think of it, it was more than 10,000. It was more than 10,000. What about the bodies that we read about? The black men that we read about? Their bodies were never found. Everything was burned to ashes. White folks took home the rest of the body for souvenirs. Them hundreds, thousands of men that weren't able to be accounted for because there was no body. During these years, more than 10,000 Negroes have been killed in cold blood without the formality of judicial trial and legal execution. Nothing done. Nothing done. No one arrested, no one convicted, no one questioned. And yet, as evidence of the absolute impunity with which the white man dares to kill a Negro, the same record shows that during all these years, and for all these murders, only 3 white men have been tried, convicted, and executed. As no white man has been lynched for the murder of colored people, these 3 executions are the only instances of the death penalty being visited upon white men for murdering Negroes. Must have been somebody else's Negro, somebody else's black man. Let's read. Naturally enough, the commission of these crimes began to tell upon the public conscience and the Southern white man as a tribute to the 19th century civilization was in a manner compelled to give excuses for his barbarism. Naturally enough, the commission of these crimes began to tell upon the public conscience and the Southern white man as a tribute to the 19th century civilization was in a manner compelled to give excuses for his barbarism. His excuses have adapted themselves to the emergency and are aptly outlined by the greatest of all Negroes, Frederick Douglass, in an article of recent date, in which he shows there have been 3 distinct eras of Southern barbarism, to account for which 3 distinct excuses have been made. The first excuse given to the civilized world for the murder of unoffending Negroes was the necessity of the white man to repress and stamp out alleged race riots. For years immediately succeeding the war, there was an appalling slaughter of colored people, and the wires usually conveyed to Northern people and the world the intelligence, first, that an insurrection was being planned by Negroes, which a few hours later would prove to have been vigorously resisted by white men and controlled, with a resulting loss of several killed and wounded. It was always a remarkable feature in these insurrections and riots that only Negroes were killed during the rioting and that all the white men escaped unharmed. That was the first excuse, that black people were rising up, were a threat. From 1865 to 1872, hundreds of colored men and colored women were mercilessly murdered, and the almost invariable reason assigned was that they met their death by being alleged participants in an insurrection or a riot. But this story at last wore itself out. No insurrection ever materialized. No Negro rioter was ever apprehended and proven guilty, and no dynamite ever recorded the black man's protest against oppression and wrong. It was too much to ask thoughtful people to believe this transparent story, and the Southern white people at last made up their minds that some other excuse must be had. So they come up with another excuse. Then came the second excuse, which had its birth during the turbulent times of Reconstruction. By an amendment to the Constitution, the Negro was given the right of franchise, and theoretically at least, his ballot became his invaluable emblem of citizenship. In a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, the Negro's vote became an important factor in all matters of state and national politics. But this did not last long. The Southern white man would not consider that the Negro had any right which a white man was bound to respect, and the idea of a Republican form of government in the Southern states grew into general contempt. The Southern white man would not consider that the Negro had any right which a white man was bound to respect, and the idea of a Republican form of government in the Southern states grew into general contempt. It was maintained that this is a white man's government, and regardless of numbers, the white man should rule. No Negro domination became the new legend on the sanguinary banner of the Sunny South. That's SANGUINARY. No Negro domination became the new legend on the sanguinary banner of the Sunny South, and under it rode the Ku Klux Klan, the regulators, and the lawless mobs, which for any cause chose to murder one man or a dozen men as suited their best purpose. It was a long, gory campaign. The blood chills, and the heart almost loses faith in Christianity when one thinks of Yazoo, YAZOO, Hamburg, Edgefield, Copia, COPIA, and the countless massacres of defenseless Negroes whose only crime was the attempt to exercise their right to vote. I never heard of these, but we'll look them up. Let me underline them. Anyway. But it was a bootless strife for colored people. strife, S-T-R-I-F-E. But it was a bootless strife for colored people. The government which had made the Negro a citizen found itself unable to protect him. It gave him the right to vote, but denied him the protection which should have maintained that right. Scourged, see, S-C-O-U-R-G-E-D, scourged from his home, hunted through the swamps, hung by midnight raiders, and openly murdered in the light of day, the Negro clung to his right of franchise with a heroism which would have won admiration from the hearts of any savages. He believed that in the small white ballot, there was a subtle something which stood for manhood as well as citizenship, and thousands of brave men went to their graves, exemplifying the one by dying for the other. For that vote. The white man's victory soon became complete by fraud, violence, intimidation, and murder. The franchise vouchsafed, V-O-U-C-H-S-A-F-E-D. The franchise vouchsafed to the Negro grew to be a barren ideality. And regardless of numbers, the colored people found themselves voiceless in the councils of those whose duty it was to rule. With no longer the fear of Negro domination before their eyes, the white man's second excuse became valueless. With the Southern governments all subverted and the Negro actually eliminated from all participation in state and national elections, there could be no longer an excuse for killing Negroes to prevent Negro domination. Brutality still continued. Negroes were whipped, scourged, exiled, shot, and hung whenever and wherever it pleased the white man so to treat them. And as the civilized world with increasing persistency held the white people of the South to account for its outlawry, the murders invented the third excuse, that Negroes had to be killed to avenge their assaults upon women. There could be framed no possible excuse more harmful to the Negro and more unanswerable if true in its sufficiency for the white man. What does scourge mean? Do that mean burned or boiled? Let me see. Because I keep saying it, I know I ain't pronouncing it right, but let me just at least see what it means. Whipped. It means whipped. Flog, whip, beat, horse whip, lash, flagellate, flail, just some other words of it. Oh, good day, Hank. Yeah, we don't need the 4th of July anyway. Frederick Douglass said it wasn't ours, no how. Yeah. It's the fireworks right here. Get y'all books. Humanity abhors the assailant of womanhood, and this charge upon the Negro at once placed him beyond the pale of human sympathy. With such unanimity, earnestness, and apparent candor was this charge made and reiterated that the world has accepted the story that the Negro is a monster, which the Southern white man has painted him. And today, the Christian world feels that while lynching is a crime and lawlessness and anarchy the certain precursors of a nation's fall, it cannot by word or deed extend sympathy or help to a race of outlaws who might mistake their plea for justice and deem it an excuse for their continued wrong. The Negro has suffered much and is willing to suffer more. He recognizes that the wrongs of 2 centuries cannot be righted in a day, and he tries to bear his burden with patience for today and be hopeful for tomorrow. But there comes a time when the veriest worm will turn. Yeah, V-E-R-I-E-S-T. There comes a time when the veriest worm will turn, and the Negro feels today that after all the work he has done, all the sacrifices he has made, and all the suffering he has endured, if he did not now defend his name and manhood from this vile accusation, he would be unworthy even of the contempt of mankind. It is to this charge he now feels he must make answer. If the Southern people, in defense of their lawlessness, would tell the truth and admit that colored men and colored women are lynched for almost any offense, from murder to a misdemeanor. There would not now be the necessity for this defense. But when they intentionally, maliciously, and constantly belie the record and bolster up these falsehoods by the words of legislators, preachers, governors, and bishops, then the Negro must give to the world his side of the awful story. We got to tell it. A word as to the charge itself. In considering the third reason assigned by the Southern white people for the butchery of blacks, the question must be asked, what the white man means when he charges the black man with rape. Does he mean the crime which the statutes of the civilized states describe as such? Not by any means. With the Southern white man, any misaliance, MESALLIANCE, any misaliance existing between a white woman and a colored man is a sufficient foundation for the charge of rape, even if it was consent. Dozens, hundreds of black men were in relationships with white women, and it didn't even matter. Even if she didn't claim out rape, which a lot of times they did claim rape. But sometimes when they didn't, it still didn't matter. Black men and some white women claimed themselves getting married. And both of them were murdered, hung, and beat. Yeah, just unmentionable stuff. Oh, honey, how's my fan gonna stand up now? No, my feet get some air, right? The Southern white man says that it is impossible for voluntary aliens to exist between a white woman and a colored man, and therefore the fact of an alien's is a proof of force. In numerous instances where colored men have been lynched on the charge of rape, it was positively known at the time of lynching and indisputably proven after the victim's death that the relationship sustained between the man and woman was voluntary and clandestine, and that in no court of law could even the charge of assault have been successfully maintained, but they just lynched them. Even if it was a relationship, a marriage, a courtship, just any old excuse so that they can maintain their beastly nature. That's what that was. And it's trying to come out again. They're looking for a reason to bring it out again, to bring it over and out again, because it's underground, but they're trying to bring it back out again. Don't be misled. It was for the assertion of this fact and in defense of her own race that the writer hereof became an exile, her property destroyed, and her return to her home forbidden under penalty of death for writing the following editorial, which was printed in her paper, The Free Speech, in Memphis, Tennessee, May the 21st of 1892. 8 Negroes lynched since last issue of The Free Speech, one at Little Rock, Arkansas, last Saturday morning, where the citizens broke into the penitentiary and got their man. 3 near Anniston, Alabama, 1 near New Orleans, and 3 at Clarksville, Georgia. The last 3 for killing a white man. Self-defense, most likely. And 5 on the same old racket, the new alarm about raping white women. The same program of hanging, then shooting bullets into the lifeless bodies, was carried out to the letter. Nobody in this section of the country believes the old threadbare lie that Negro men rape white women. If Southern white men are not careful, they will overreach themselves and public sentiment will have a reaction. A conclusion will then be reached, which will be very damaging to the morale reputation of their women. But threats cannot suppress the truth. And while the Negro suffers the soul deformity resulting from 2.5 centuries of slavery, he is no more guilty of the vilest of all vile charges than the white man who would blacken his name. Nobody is more vile than the white man and what he has done, his ancestors have done. During all the years of slavery, no such charge was ever made, not even during the dark days of the rebellion, when the white man, following the fortunes of war, went to do battle for the maintenance of slavery. While the master was away fighting to force the fetters upon the slave, He left his wife and children with no protectors, save the Negroes themselves. And yet, during those years of trust and peril, no Negro proved recreant to his trust, and no white man ever returned to a home that had been despoiled. For all the fear that black men were raping white women. Likewise, during the period of alleged insurrection and alarming race riots, it never occurred to the white man that his wife and children were in danger of assault. Never even occurred to him. Nor in the Reconstruction era, when the hue and cry was against Negro domination, was there ever a thought that the domination would ever contaminate a fireside or strike to death the virtue of womanhood. It must appear strange indeed to every thoughtful and candid man that more than a quarter of a century elapsed before the Negro began to show signs of such infamous degeneration. In his remarkable apology for lynching, Bishop Haygood of Georgia says, "No race, not the most savage, tolerates the rape of woman, but it may be said without reflection upon any other people that the Southern people are now, and always have been, most sensitive concerning the honor of their women, their mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters. It is not the purpose of this defense to say one word against the white woman of the South. Such need not be said, but it is their misfortune that the chivalrous white men of that section, in order to escape the deserved execration, execration, in order to escape the deserved execration of the civilized world, should shield themselves by their cowardly and infamously false excuse, and call into question that very honor about which their distinguished priestly apologist claims they are most sensitive, the white woman. Use her as a shield for their beastly natures. Use the white woman as a shield." And she let them. To justify their own barbarism, they assume a chivalry which they do not possess. True chivalry respects all womanhood, and no one who reads the record, and it is written in the faces of the million mulattoes in the South, will for a minute concede that the Southern white man had a very chivalrous regard for the honor due the women of his own race, or respect for the womanhood which circumstances placed in his power. That chivalry, which is most sensitive concerning the honor of women, can hope for but little respect from the civilized world when it confines itself entirely to the women who happen to be white. Virtue knows no color line, and the chivalry which depends upon complexion of skin and texture of hair can command no honest respect. When emancipation came to the Negroes, there arose in the northern part of the United States an almost divine sentiment among the noblest, purest, and best white women of the North, who felt called to a mission to educate and Christianize the millions of Southern ex-slaves. From every nook and corner of the North, brave young white women answered that call and left their cultured homes, their happy associations, and their lives of ease, and with heroic determination went to the South to carry light and truth to the benighted blacks. It was a heroism no less than that which calls for volunteers for India, Africa, and the Isles of the Sea, to educate their unfortunate charges, to teach them the Christian virtues, and to inspire in them the moral sentiments manifest in their own lives. These young women braved dangers whose record reads more like fiction than fact. They became social outlaws in the South. The peculiar sensitiveness of the Southern white men for women never shed its protecting influence about them. No friendly word from their own race cheered them in their work. No hospitable doors gave them the companionship like that from which they had come. No chivalrous white man doffed his hat in honor or respect. They were nigger teachers, unpardonable offenders in the social ethics of the South, and were insulted, persecuted, and ostracized, not by Negroes, but by the white manhood which boasts of its chivalry toward women. And now y'all think that, yeah, y'all saved. And yet these northern women worked on year after year unselfishly, with a heroism which amounted almost to martyrdom. threading their way through dense forests, working in schoolhouses, in the cabin, and in the church, thrown at all times and in all places among the unfortunate and lowly Negroes, whom they had come to find and to serve. These northern women, thousands and thousands of them, had spent more than a quarter of a century in giving to the colored people their splendid lessons for home and heart and soul, without protection save that which innocence gives to every good woman. They went about their work, fearing no assault and suffering none. Their chivalrous protectors were hundreds of miles away in their northern homes, and yet they never feared any great dark-faced mobs. They dared, night or day, to go beyond their own roof trees. They never complained of assaults, and no mob was ever called into existence to avenge crimes against them. Before the world adjudges the Negro a moral monster, a vicious assailant of womanhood, and a menace to the sacred precincts of home, the colored people ask the consideration of the silent record of gratitude, respect, protection, and devotion of the millions of the race in the South, to the thousands of northern white women who have served as teachers and missionaries since the war. And it just strikes me that ain't it something? That, they came to teach Christianity. They didn't come with resources and funds and tangibles. They came to teach us some more Christianity, some more religion. As if we hadn't already learned enough. But I digress. The Negro may not have known what chivalry was, but he knew enough to preserve and violate the womanhood of the South, who was entrusted to his hands during the war. And that's not inviolate, it's inviolate. INVIOLATE. But he knew enough to preserve, to keep the womanhood of the South, which was entrusted to his hands during the war. He knew to make sure that white woman didn't get hurt. That's what it's saying. That's what Sister's saying. The finer sensibilities of his soul may have been crushed out by years of slavery, but his heart was full of gratitude to the white women of the North, who blessed his home and inspired his soul in all those years of freedom. Faithful to his trust in both of these instances, he should now have the impartial ear of the civilized world when he dares to speak for himself as against the infamy wherewith he stands charged. It is his regret that in his own defense, he must disclose to the world that degree of dehumanizing brutality which fixes upon America the blot of a national crime. Whatever faults and failings other nations may have in their dealings with their own subjects or with other people, no other civilized nation stands condemned before the world with a series of crimes so peculiarly national. It becomes a painful duty to the Negro to reproduce a record which shows that a large portion of the American people avow anarchy, condone murder, and defy the contempt of civilization. These pages are written in no spirit of vindictiveness, for all who give the subject consideration must concede that far too serious is the condition of that civilized government in which the spirit of unrestrained outlawry constantly increases in violence and casts its blight over a continually growing area of territory. We plead not for the colored people alone, but for all victims of the terrible injustice which puts men and women to death without form of law. During the year 1894, there were 132 persons executed in the United States by due form of law, while in the same year, 197 persons were put to death by mobs who gave the victims no opportunity to make a lawful defense. So in 1894, by form of law, 132 people were executed. But that same year, the mobs, white mobs, hung 197. No comment needed to be made upon a condition of public sentiment responsible for such alarming results. No comment need be made. The purpose of the pages which follow shall be to give the record of which has been made, not by colored men, but that which is the result of compilations made by white men, of reports sent over the civilized world by white men in the South, Out of their own mouth shall the murderers be condemned. For a number of years, the Chicago Tribune, admittedly one of the leading journals of America, has made a specialty of the compilation of statistics touching upon lynching. The data compiled by the journal and published to the world January 1st, 1894, up to the present time, has not been disputed. In order to be safe from the charge of exaggeration, the incidents hereinafter reported have been confined to those vouched for by the Tribune, the Chicago Tribune. All right, we're on chapter 2. Yeah. We probably gonna make it to chapter 3, y'all. I know we're gonna make it to chapter 3. I can't say we're gonna get out to chapter 3. Oh, history of some cases of rape. Let's read. Chapter 2, Lynch Law Statistics. From the record published in the Chicago Tribune, January 1st, 1894, the following computation of lynching statistics is made referring only to the colored victims of lynch law during the year 1893. Arson. September the 15th in Paul Hill, Carrollton, Alabama. That's Carrollton, Carlton, Alabama. September the 15th, Paul Archer, Archer, Carrollton, Alabama. September the 15th, William Archer, Carrollton, Alabama. September the 15th, Emma Fair, Carrollton, Alabama. Suspected robbery, December the 23rd, unknown Negro in Fannin, Mississippi. That's Fannin, Mississippi. Assault, December the 25th, on Christmas Day. Calvin Thomas near Brainbridge, Georgia. Attempted assault, December the 28th. Tillman Green, Columbia, Louisiana. Incendiarism, Incendiarism, incendiarism. January the 26th, Patrick Wells, Quincy, Florida. February the 9th, there was Frank Harrell in Dickory, Mississippi. On February the 9th, William Fielder, Filder, in Dickory, Mississippi. Attempted rape, February the 21st, Richard Mays in Springville, Missouri. August the 14th, Doug Hazelton, and that's D-U-G, Doug Hazelton in Carrollton, Georgia. And September the 1st, Judge McNeil in Cadiz, Kentucky, Cadiz. On September the 11th, Frank Smith in Newton, Mississippi. On September the 16th, William Jackson in Nevada, Missouri. On September the 19th, Riley Gully, Riley Gulley, in Pineapple, Alabama. On October the 9th, John Davis in Shorterville, Alabama. On November the 8th, Robert Kennedy in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Burglary. February the 16th, there was Richard Foreman in Grenada, Mississippi. Wife beating. On October the 4th, David Jackson in Covington, Louisiana. For attempted murder, September the 21st, Thomas Smith in Roanoke, Virginia. Attempted robbery, December the 12th, 4 unknown Negroes near Selma, Alabama. Race prejudice, on January the 30th, Thomas Carr in Kosciusko, Mississippi. Kosciusko, Kosciusko, Mississippi. On February the 7th, William Butler, Hickory Creek, Texas. On August the 27th, Charles Tart, Lyons Station, Mississippi. It was Lyons Station, Indiana, where Vernon, what was his name? Hole in your head. When they radiated all the babies that was in kindergarten with radiation, they experimented on them. That was in Lyons. That was Lyons Station. But this right here is Charles Tart in Lyons Station, Lyons. Lyons Station, Mississippi. December the 7th, Robert Greenwood in Cross County, Arkansas. July the 14th, Alan Butler in Lawrenceville, Illinois. Thieves. October the 24th, 2 unknown Negroes in Knox Point, Louisiana. Alleged barn burning. November the 4th, Edward Wagner in Lynchburg, Virginia. November the 4th, William Wagner, Lynchburg, Virginia. November the 4th, Samuel Motlow, Motlow, in Lynchburg, Virginia. November the 4th, Eliza Motlow, Lynchburg, Virginia. Alleged murder. January the 21st, Robert Landry, Landry, in St. James Parish, Louisiana. January the 21st, Chicken George in St. James Parish, Louisiana. January the 21st, Richard Davis in St. James Parish, Louisiana. December the 8th, Benjamin Menter, Menter, in Berlin, Alabama. December the 8th, Robert Wilkins in Berlin, Alabama. That's Berlin. December the 8th, Joseph Gevens, Gevhens, Joseph Gevens in Berlin, Alabama. Alleged complicity in murder. September the 16th, Valsin Julian, Valsin Julian, Valsin Julian in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. On September the 16th, Basil Julian, Basil, Basil Julian in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. September the 16th, there was Paul Julian in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. September the 16th, John Willis in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. Murder. June the 29th, Samuel Thorpe, Thorp, in Savannah, Georgia. June the 29th, George S. Reachen, Riechen, George S. Reachen in Waynesboro, Georgia. June the 30th, Joseph Bird in Wilburton, IT. What is that? Wilburton, IT. I don't know what state that is, but I digress. On James the 1st, James Lamar in Darien, Georgia. July the 28th, there was Henry Miller in Dallas, Texas. July the 28th, Ada Harris, Hiers, in Walterboro, South Carolina. July the 28th, Alexander Brown in Bastrop, Texas, Bastrop, Bastrop, Texas. And July the 30th, there was W.G. Jameson in Quincy, Illinois. September the 1st, John Ferguson in Lawrence, South Carolina. And that's Lawrens, Lawrence, South Carolina. September the 21st, Oscar Johnston in Berkeley, South Carolina. September the 1st, Henry Ewing, Ewing, in Berkeley, South Carolina. September the 8th, William Smith in Camden, Arkansas. September the 15th, Staples Green in Livingston, Alabama. September the 29th, Hiram Jacobs, Hiram, Hiram Jacobs in Mount Vernon, Georgia. September the 29th, Lucian Mannett, Lucien Mannet, Lucian Mannett in Mount Vernon, Georgia. September the 29th, Hire Bevington in Mount Vernon, Georgia. And the name is Hire, Hire, Bevington, Bevington. On September the 29th, there was Weldon Gordon, Weldon, Weldon Gordon in Mount Vernon, Georgia. September the 29th, there was Parr Strickland in Mount Vernon, Georgia. On October the 20th, William Dalton in Cartersville, Georgia. October the 27th, M.B. Taylor in Wise Courthouse, Virginia. On October the 27th, Isaac Williams in Madison, Georgia. November the 10th, Miller Davis in Center Point, Arkansas. November the 14th, John Johnston in Auburn, New York. On September the 27th, Calvin Stewart in Langley, South Carolina. That's Langley. September the 29th, Henry Coleman in Denton, Louisiana. Oh, remember in the book that was Richard Coleman, the 14-year-old. In this book right here, 100 Years of Lynching. Yeah, this was Richard Coleman. He was the 14-year-old. Remember, they burned him at the stake. There were thousands of thousands of white men there, hundreds of white women and white kids there with their babies and stuff. He won but 14. Richard was 14 years old. And they accused him of a crime that he didn't even commit. And remember, they were rubbing that cayenne pepper in his eyes and holding it down so that it really burned him and stuff and tortured him. They burned him at the stake. And that's the same last name. Henry Coleman in Denton, Louisiana. October the 18th, William Richards in Somerville, Georgia. October the 18th, James Dixon in Somerville, Georgia. October the 27th, Edward Jenkins in Clayton County, Georgia. November the 9th, Henry Boggs in Fort White, Florida. On November the 14th, 3 unknown Negroes, Lake City Junction, Florida. On November the 14th, D.T. Nelson in Varney, Arkansas. On November the 29th, Newton Jones in Baxley, Georgia. That's Baxley. On December the 2nd, Lucius Holt in Concord, Georgia. On December the 10th, 2 unknown Negroes in Richmond, Alabama. On July the 12th, Henry Fleming in Columbus, Mississippi. On July the 17th, an unknown Negro in Briarfield, Alabama. On July the 18th, Meredith Lewis in Roseland, Louisiana. On July the 29th, Edward Bill in Dresden, Tennessee. On August the 1st, Henry Reynolds in Montgomery, Tennessee. On August the 9th, unknown Negro in McCreary, Arkansas. McCreery, McCreary, Arkansas. On August the 12th, unknown Negro in Brantford, Florida. On August the 18th, Charles Walton in Morganfield, Kentucky. On August the 21st, Charles Tate, Tait, near Memphis, Tennessee. I know some Tates, but it was spelled different. It was spelled Tate, but this here is Tait. On August the 28th, Leonard Taylor in Newcastle, Kentucky. On September the 8th, Benjamin Jackson in Quincy, Mississippi. On September the 14th, John Williams in Jackson, Tennessee. For self-defense, on July the 30th, an unknown Negro in Wingo, Kentucky. Poisoning wells. August the 18th, 2 unknown Negroes in Franklin Parish, Louisiana. Alleged well poisoning. On September the 15th, Benjamin Jackson in Jackson, Mississippi. On September the 15th, Mahala Jackson in Jackson, Mississippi. And that's Mahala, Jackson. On September the 15th, Louisa Carter in Jackson, Mississippi. On September the 15th, W.A. Haley in Jackson, Mississippi. On September the 16th, Rufus Bigley, Bigley, in Jackson, Mississippi. For insulting whites, on February the 18th, John Hughes in Moberly, Missouri, Moberly, Missouri. On June the 2nd, Isaac Lincoln in Fort Madison, South Carolina. Murderous assault. On April the 20th, Daniel Adams, Selena, and Can, Kan. No offense. July the 21st, Charles Martin in Shelby County, Tennessee. On July the 30th, William Steen in Paris, Mississippi. On August the 31st, unknown Negro in Yarborough, Texas. September the 30th, unknown Negro in Houston, Texas. On December the 28th, Max Segars, Segars, in Brantley, Alabama. For alleged rape, July the 7th, Charles T. Miller in Bardwell, Kentucky, Bardwell. On August the 10th, Daniel Lewis in Waycross, Georgia. On August the 10th, James Taylor in Waycross, Georgia. On August the 10th, John Chambers in Waycross, Georgia. Alleged stock poisoning. December the 16th, Henry G. Givens in Nebro, Kentucky. That's Nebro. Suspected murder. December the 23rd, Sloan Allen in West Mississippi. For suspicion of rape, February 14th, Andy Blount, Blount, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Turning state's evidence. On December the 19th, William Ferguson in Adelaide, Georgia. For rape. On January the 19th, James Williams in Pickens County, Alabama. On February 11th, unknown Negro in Forest Hill, Tennessee. On February 27th, Joseph Hayne or Payne. There's Joseph Hayne or Payne, Hayne or Payne, Paine. And remember, we read about it in one of the books, how the media miscontorted the black men's names so that they could further dehumanize them and leave them with no identity. That's why Tom Wilkes, who we know as Sam Hosc, Hosc, which started out as Sam Holt, his real name is Tom Wilkes, because the media just took whatever name they wanted to erase his real name, his full name. But his full name kept up with it. The black media wasn't able to stop the erasing of his name, but it was just fortunate for us that we do know his real name, Tom Wilkes. But a lot of us still would think of it as Sam Hosc or Sam Holt. But we do know his real name was Tom Wilkes. And that's most likely what happened here with Joseph Hayne or Payne. But it was in Jellicoe, Tennessee, Jellico. On November the 1st, there was Abner Anthony, Abner, in Hot Springs, Virginia. November the 1st, Thomas Hill in Spring Place, Georgia. On April the 24th, John Peterson in Denmark, South Carolina. On May the 6th, Samuel Gaillard, Gaillard, in South Carolina. It didn't say what city. May the 10th, Haywood Banks or Marksdale, Columbia. Or Marksdale, Columbia, South Carolina. May the 12th, Israel Halloway. Ooh, yeah, that's Israel Halloway. Israel Hallyway. Napoleonville, Louisiana. That's in Napoleonville, Louisiana. Yeah, that kind of looked like my daddy's last name for a minute there. On May the 12th, unknown Negro in Whiteville, Virginia. That's Wythe, Whiteville, Virginia. Wythe On May the 31st, John Wallace in Jefferson Springs, Arkansas. On June the 3rd, Samuel Bush in Decatur, Illinois. On June the 8th, L.C. Dumas in Gleason, Tennessee. On June the 13th, William Shortner in Westchester, Virginia. On June the 14th, George Williams near Waco, Texas. On June the 24th, Daniel Edwards, Salina or Selma, Alabama. In Salina. It's either Salina or Selma, Alabama. On June the 27th, Ernest Murphy in Daleville, Alabama. July the 6th, unknown Negro in Poplar Head, Louisiana. On July the 6th, unknown Negro in Poplar Head, Louisiana. On July the 12th, Robert Larkin in Osceola, Texas. Oscola. I think it's Oscola. In Oscola, Texas. On July the 17th, Warren Dean in Stone Creek, Georgia. On July the 21st, unknown Negro in Brantford, Florida. On July the 17th, John Cotton in Connersville, Arkansas. Connersville. On July the 22nd, Lee Walker, New Albany, Mississippi. On July the 26th, in Handy, it's got a blank, and then it's got Handy. So something Handy, Swansea, South Carolina, Suansea. That's their first name. They don't have it, just got the last name, Handy, Handy. But he was murdered in Swansea, South Carolina. On July the 30th, William Thompson in Columbia, South Carolina. On July the 28th, Isaac Harper in Calera, Alabama. On July the 30th, Thomas Preston in Columbia, South Carolina. On July the 30th, Handy Kegler. The first one, the last name was Handy, but this one right here, Handy, is the first name. On July the 30th, Handy Kaigley, Kaigley, in Columbia, South Carolina. On August the 13th, Monroe Smith in Springfield, Alabama. On August the 19th, Negro Tramp near Paducah, Mississippi. On August the 21st, John Nilson, Nilson, near Leavenworth, Kansas. On August the 23rd, Jacob Davis, near Greenwood, South Carolina. On September the 2nd, William Arkinson, Arkinson, William Arkinson, in McKinney, Kentucky. On September the 16th, unknown Negro in Centerville, Alabama. On September the 16th, Jesse Mitchell in Amelia, CH, Virginia. Amelia, CH, Virginia. On September the 25th, Perry Bratcher, Bratcher, in New Boston, Texas. On October the 9th, William Lacey in Jasper, Alabama. On October the 22nd, John Gamble in Pikesville, Tennessee. And these right here are the documents that white men have documented and was sending it back and forth through their medias and to each other, and kind of like they were doing the postcards and stuff. And sister put them in her book. Offenses charged are as follows. For rape, 39, attempted rape, 8, alleged rape, 4, suspicion of rape, 1, for murder, 44, alleged murder, 6, alleged complicity in murder, 4, murderous assault, 1, attempted murder, 1, attempted robbery, 4, arson, 4, incendiarism, 3, alleged stock poisoning, 1, poisoning wells, 2, alleged poisoning wells, 5, burglary, 1, wife beating, 1, self-defense, 1, suspected robbery, 1, assault and battery, 1, insulting whites, 2, malpractice, 1, alleged barn burning, 4, stealing, 2, unknown offense, 4, no offense, 1, race prejudice, 4, total of 159. We just read their names, and she just broke them down to how many was for each alleged offense that they were claimed to have committed. Lynchings by state. In Alabama, and we still in 1893. Yep, we still in 1893. Lynchings by states. In Alabama, it was 25. Arkansas was 7. Florida, 7. Georgia, 24. Indian Territory, 1. Illinois, 3. Kansas, 2. Kentucky, 8. Louisiana, 18. Mississippi, 17. Missouri, 3. New York, 1. South Carolina, 15. Tennessee, 10. Texas, 8. And Virginia, 10. Record for the year 1892. While it is intended that the record here presented shall include specially the lynchings of 1893, it will not be amiss to give the record for the year preceding. The facts contended for will always appear manifest, that not 1/3 of the victims lynched were charged with rape, and further that the charges made embraced a range of offenses from murders to misdemeanors. In 1892, there were 241 persons lynched. The entire number is divided among the states as follows. Alabama 22, Arkansas 25, California 3, Florida 11, Georgia 17, Idaho 8, Illinois 1, Kansas 3, Kentucky 9, Louisiana 29, Maryland 1, Mississippi 16, Missouri 6, Montana 4, New York 1, North Carolina 4, North Dakota 1, Ohio 3, South Carolina 5, Tennessee 28, Texas 15, Virginia 7, West Virginia 5, Wyoming 9, Arizona Territory 3, and Oklahoma 2. Of this number, 160 were of Negro descent. 4 of them were lynched in New York, Ohio, and Kansas. The remainder were murdered in the South. 5 of this number were females. The charges for which they were lynched cover a wide range. They are as follows. Rape, 46. Murder, 58. Rioting, 3. Race prejudice, 6. No cause given, 4. Incendiarism, 6. Robbery, 6. Assault and battery, 1. attempted rape 11, suspected robbery 4, larceny 1, self-defense 1, insulting women 2, desperado 6, fraud 1, attempted murder 2, no offense stated, boy and girl 2. In the case of the boy and girl above referred to, their father, named Hastings, Hastings, was accused of the murder of a white man. His 14-year-old daughter and 16-year-old son were hanged. In the case of the boy and girl above referred to, their father, named Hastings, was accused of the murder of a white man. His 14-year-old daughter and 16-year-old son were hanged, and their bodies filled with bullets. Then the father was also lynched. This was in November 1892 at Jonesville, Louisiana. Oh, we at chapter 3. We at chapter 3. Lynching imbeciles in Arkansas's butchery. The only excuse which capital punishment attempts to find is upon the theory that the criminal is past the power of reformation and his life is a constant menace to the community. If, however, he is mentally unbalanced, irresponsible for his acts, there can be no more inhumane act conceived of than the willful sacrifice of his life. So thoroughly is that principle grounded in the law that all civilized society surrounds human life with a safeguard, which prevents the execution of a criminal who is insane, even if sane at the time of his criminal act. Should he become insane after its commission, the law steps in and protects him during the period of his insanity. But Lynch law has no such regard for human life. Assuming for itself an absolute supremacy over the law of the land, it has time and time again dyed its hands in the blood of men who were imbeciles. 2 or 3 noteworthy cases will suffice to show with what inhumane ferocity irresponsible men have been put to death by this system of injustice. Let me read that one again. 2 or 3 noteworthy cases will suffice to show with what inhuman ferocity irresponsible men have been put to death by the system of injustice. An instance occurred during the year 1892 in Arkansas, a report of which is given in full in the Arkansas Democrat, published at Little Rock, Arkansas, in that state on the 11th day of February of that year. The paper mentioned is perhaps one of the leading weeklies in that state, and the account given in detail has every mark of a careful and conscientious investigation. The victims of this tragedy were a colored man named Hamp Biscoe, Hampbiscoe. Oh, I know, well, vaguely, of a Biscoe. I don't think I know them, but I recall the name of a man named Hamp Biscoe, his wife, and a 13-year-old son. Hamp Biscoe, it appears, was a hard-working, thrifty farmer who lived near England, Arkansas, up on a small farm with his family. The investigation of the tragedy was conducted by a resident of Arkansas named R.B. Carries, a white man, who furnished the account to the Arkansas Democrat over his own signature. He says the original trouble which led to the lynching was a quarrel between Biscoe and a white man about a debt. About 6 years after Biscoe preempted his land, a white man made a demand of $100 upon him for services in showing him the land and making the sale. Biscoe denied the service and refused to pay the demand. The white man, however, brought suit, obtained judgment for the $100, and Biscoe's farm was sold to pay the judgment. The suit, judgment, and subsequent legal proceedings appear to have driven Biscoe almost crazy and brooding over his wrongs. He grew to be a confirmed imbecile. He would allow but few men, white or colored, to come upon his place, as he suspected every stranger to be planning to steal his farm. A week preceding the tragedy, a white man named Venable, Venable, whose farm adjoined Biscoe's, let down the fence and proceeded to drive through Bisco's field. The latter saw him, grew very excited, cursed him, and drove him from his farm with bitter oaths and violent threats. Venable went away and secured a warrant for Bisco's arrest. This warrant was placed in the hands of a constable named John Ford, who took a colored deputy and 2 white men out to Bisco's farm to make the arrest. When they arrived at the house, Bisco refused to be arrested and warned them that he would shoot if they persisted in their attempt to arrest him. The warning was unheeded by Ford, who entered upon the premises when Bisco, true to his word, fired upon him. The load tore a part of his clothes from his body, one shot going through his arm and entering his breast. After he had fallen, Ford drew his revolver and shot Bisco in the head and his wife through the arm. The Negro deputy then began firing and struck Bisco in the small of the back. Ford's wound was not dangerous, and in a few days he was able to be around again. Bisco, however, was so severely shot that he was unable to stand after the firing was over. 2 other white men, hearing the exchange of shots, went to the rescue of the officers, forced open the door of Bisco's cabin and arrested him, his wife, and his 13-year-old son, and took them together with a babe at the breast to a small frame house near the depot and put them under guard. The subsequent proceedings were briefly told by Mr. Carlee, Carlee, in the columns of the Arkansas Democrat above mentioned, from whose account the following excerpt is taken. It is rumored here that the Negroes were to be lynched that night, but I do not think it was generally credited, as it was not believed that Ford was greatly hurt, and the Negro was held to be fatally injured and crazy at that. But that night, about 8 o'clock, a party of perhaps 12 or 15 men, a number of whom were known to the guards, came to the house and told the Negro guards they would take care of the prisoners now and for them to leave. As they did not obey at once, they were persuaded to leave with words that did not admit of delay. The woman began to cry and said, "You intend to kill us to get our money." They told her to hush. She was heavy with child, and she had a child at her breast. She was pregnant, and she had a baby that was still nursing, as they intended to give her a nice present. The guards heard no more, but hastened to a Negro church nearby and urged the preacher to go up and stop the mob. A few minutes after, the shooting began, perhaps about 40 shots being fired. The white men then left rapidly, and the Negroes went to the house. Hamp Bisco and his wife were killed. The baby had a slight wound across the upper lip. The boy was still alive and lived until after midnight, talking rationally and telling who did the shooting. The 13-year-old son. He said when they came in and shot his father, he attempted to run out of doors, and a young man shot him in the bowels and that he fell. He saw another man shoot his mother, and a taller young man, whom he did not know, shoot his father. After they had killed them, the young man who had shot his mother pulled off her stockings and took $220 in currency that she had hid there. The men then came to the door where the boy was lying, and one of them turned him over and put his pistol to his breast and shot him again. This is the story the dying boy told as near as I can get it. It is quite singular that the guards and those who had conversed with him were not required to testify. The woman was known to have the money as she had exposed it that day. She also had $36 in silver, which the plunderer of the body did not get. He didn't find her silver. The Negro was undoubtedly insane and had been for several years. The citizens of this community condemn the murderer and have no sympathy with it. The citizens of this community condemn the murder and have no sympathy with it. The Negro was a well-to-do farmer, but had become crazed because he was convinced some plot had been made to steal his land, and only a few days ago declared that he expected to die in defense of his home in a short time, and he did not care how soon. The killing of a woman with a child at her breast and in her condition, and also a young boy, was extremely brutal. As for Hamp Biscoe, he was dangerous and should long have been confined to an insane asylum. Such were the facts as near as I can get them, and you can use them as you see fit. But I would prefer you suppress the names charged by the Negroes with the killing. So they didn't he told them the names before he died. But the one that gave this account right here, he didn't want their names mentioned. Perhaps the civilized world would think that with all these facts laid before the public by a writer who signs his name to his communication in a land where grand juries are sworn to investigate, where judges and juries are sworn to administer the law, and sheriffs are paid to execute the decrees of the court, and where, in fact, every instrument of civilization is supposed to work for the common good of all citizens, that this matter was duly investigated, the criminals apprehended, and the punishment meted out to the murderers. But this is a mistake. Nothing of the kind was done or attempted. 6 months after the publication above referred to, an investigator, writing to find out what had been done in the matter, received the following reply. Office of S.S. Glover, Sheriff and Collector, Lonoke County, Lonoke, Lonoke, Arkansas, September 12, 1892. George Washington, Esquire, in Chicago, Illinois. Dear Sir, the parties who killed Hamp Briscoe February the 9th have never been arrested. The parties are still in the county. It was done by some of the citizens, and those who know will not tell. S.S. Glover, Sheriff. Thus acts the mob with the victim of its fury, conscious that it will never be called to an account. Not only is this true, but the moral support of those who are chosen by the people to execute the law is frequently given to the support of lawlessness and mob violence. The press and even the pulpit, in the main, either by silence or by apology, have condoned and encouraged this state of anarchy. Tortured and burned in Texas. Never in the history of civilization has any Christian people stooped to such shocking brutality and indescribable barbarism as that which characterized the people of Paris, Texas, and adjacent communities on the 1st of February in 1893. The cause of this awful outbreak of human passion was the murder of a 4-year-old child, daughter of a man named Vance. This man, Vance, had been a police officer in Paris for years and was known to be a man of bad temper, overbearing manner, and given to harshly treating the prisoners under his care. He had arrested Smith and, it is said, cruelly mistreated him. Whether or not the murder of his child was an art of fiendish revenge, it has not been shown. But many persons who know of the incident have suggested that the secret of the attack on the child lay in a desire for revenge against his father. Eye for an eye, I guess it was. Let's read. If he even did it. It just said right here, the father, his ass had a bad temper. And then in some of the other books, we did find out after the lynching of innocent black men that a white man had committed many crimes. In the same town, there lived a Negro named Henry Smith, a well-known character, a kind of roustabout who was generally considered a harmless, weak-minded fellow, not capable of doing any important work, but sufficiently able to do chores and odd jobs around the houses of the white people who cared to employ him. A few days before the final tragedy, this man, Smith, was accused of murdering Myrtle Vance. The crime of murder was of itself bad enough, and to prove that against Smith would have been amply sufficient in Texas to have committed him to the gallows. But the finding of the child so exasperated the father and his friends that they at once shamefully exaggerated the facts and declared that the babe had been ruthlessly assaulted and then killed. The truth was bad enough, but the white people of the community made it a point to exaggerate every detail of the awful affair and to inflame the public mind so that nothing less than immediate and violent death would satisfy the populace. As a matter of fact, The child was not brutally assaulted as the world had been told in excuse for the awful barbarism of that day. Persons who saw the child after its death have stated, under the most solemn pledge to truth, that there was no evidence of such an assault as was published at that time. Only a slight abrasion and discoloration was noticeable, and that mostly about the neck. In spite of this fact, so eminent a man as Bishop Haywood deliberately, and it must also appear maliciously, falsified the fact by stating that the child was torn limb from limb. And to quote his own words, first outraged with demoniacal cruelty, and then taken by her heels and torn asunder in the mad wantonness of guerrilla ferocity. That's what he said. First outraged with demoniacal cruelty, and then taken by her heels and torn asunder in a mad wantonness of guerrilla ferocity. Sound like they asses. Nothing is farther from the truth than that statement. It is a cold-blooded, deliberate, brutal falsehood with this Christian bishop used to bolster up the infamous plea that the people of Paris were driven to insanity by learning that the little child had been viciously assaulted, choked to death, and then torn to pieces by a demon in human form. It was a brutal murder, but no more brutal than hundreds of murders which occur in this country, and which have been equaled every year in fiendishness and brutality, and for which the death penalty is prescribed by law and inflicted only after the person has been legally adjudged guilty of the crime. Those who knew Smith believed that Vance had at some time given him cause to seek revenge, and that this fearful crime was the outgrowth of his attempt to avenge himself of some real or fanciful wrong. Then the murderer was known as an imbecile. That the murderer was known as an imbecile had no effect whatsoever upon the people who thirsted for his blood. They determined to make an example of him and proceeded to carry out their purpose with unspeakably greater ferocity than that which characterized the half-crazy object of their revenge. For a day or so after the child was found in the woods, Smith remained in the vicinity as if nothing had happened. And when finally becoming aware that he was suspected, he made an attempt to escape. He was apprehended, however, not far from the scene of his crime, and the news flashed across the country that the white Christian people of Paris, Texas, and the communities thereabout had deliberately determined to lay aside all forms of law and inaugurate an entirely new form of punishment for the murder. They absolutely refused to make any inquiry as to the sanity or insanity of their prisoner, but set the day and hour when the presence of assembled thousands they put their but set the day and hour when in the presence of assembled thousands of people, they put their helpless victim to the stake, tortured him, and then burned him to death for the delectation and satisfaction of Christian people. Christian people. I'm just saying, do with it what you may. Now you see why our ancestors, Now you see why our ancestors didn't really just run with this religion. They were sincere in it. They were honest. They were honest people, sincere people anyway. But they knew what religion was for us. It was just a tool for us to use. You still was supposed to do the work with it. Ooh, so let's read. Lest it might be charged that any description of the deeds of that day are exaggerated, a white man's description, which was published in the white journals of this country, is used. The New York Sun of February 2nd, 1893, contains an account from which we make the following excerpt. Paris, Texas, February 1st, 1893. Henry Smith, the Negro ravisher of 4-year-old Myrtle Vance, has has expiated, EXPIATED, has expiated in part his awful crime by death at the stake. Ever since the perpetration of this awful crime, this city and the entire surrounding country has been in a wild frenzy of excitement. When the news came last night that he had been captured at Hope, Arkansas, that he had been identified by B.B. Sturgeon, James T. Hicks, and many other of the Paris searching party, the city was wild with joy over the apprehension of this brute. Oh yeah, they was getting ready. You know, it said they had like in all of these lynching, there was a fair, like a carnival-like atmosphere. Hundreds of people poured into the city from the adjoining country, and the word passed from lip to lip that the punishment of the fiend should fit the crime, that death by fire was the penalty Smith should pay for the most atrocious murder and terrible outrage in Texas history. Cautious and sympathizing alike, they came on the train, on wagons, on the horse, on foot, to see if the frail mind of a man could think of a way to sufficiently punish the perpetrator of so terrible a crime. Whiskey shops was closed, unruly mobs were dispersed, schools was dismissed by a proclamation from the mayor, and everything was done in a business-like manner to go to the lynching. Meeting of citizens. About 2 o'clock Friday, a mass meeting was called at the courthouse, and captains appointed to search for the child. She was found mangled beyond recognition, covered with leaves and brush as above mentioned. As soon as it was learned upon the recovery of the body that the crime was so atrocious, the whole town turned out in the chase. The railroads put up bulletins offering free transportation to all the people who would join in the search. Posses went in every direction, and not a stone was left unturned. Smith was tracked to Detroit on foot, where he jumped on a freight train and left for his old home in Hempstead County, Arkansas. To this county, he was tracked and yesterday captured at Clow, CLOW, a flag station on the Arkansas and Louisiana Railway about 20 miles north of Hope. Upon being questioned, the fiend denied everything, but upon being stripped for examination, his undergarments were seen to be spattered with blood, and a part of his shirt was torn off. He was kept under heavy guard at Hope last night, and later on confessed the crime. This morning, he was brought through Texarkana, where 5,000 people awaited the train, anxious to see a man who received the fate of Ed Coy. Anxious to see a man who had received the fate of Ed Coy. At that place, speeches were made by prominent Paris citizens who asked that the prisoner be not molested by Texarkana people, but that the guard be allowed to deliver him up to the outraged and indignant citizens of Paris. Along the road, the train gathered strength from the various towns. The people crowded upon the platforms and tops of the coaches, anxious to see the lynching, and the Negro who was soon to be delivered to an infuriated mob. Can you imagine how he felt? Burned at the stake. Arriving here at 12 o'clock, the train was met by a surging mass of humanity, 10,000 strong. The Negro was placed upon a carnival float. Told you, it's like a carnival atmosphere to them. When this right here happens, it brings out the fiendishness in them. Next time you go to the carnival, you think about it while you're there. You think about that carnival atmosphere. The Negro was placed upon a carnival float in mockery of a king upon his throne, and followed by an immense crowd, was escorted through the city so that all night, all of them might see the most inhumane monster known in current history. Yeah, they just walked him through there so people could see him and join. The line of march was up Main Street to the square, around the square, down Clarksville Street to Church Street, thence to the open prairies about 300 yards from the Texas and Pacific Depot. Here, Smith was placed upon a scaffold, 6 feet square and 10 feet high, securely bound within the view of all beholders. Here, the victim was tortured for 50 minutes by red-hot iron brands thrust against his quivering body. Commencing at the feet, the brands were placed against him inch by inch until they were thrust against the face. Then, being apparently dead, kerosene was poured upon him, cottonseed hulls placed beneath him, and set on fire. In less time than it takes to relate it, the tortured man was wafted beyond the grave to another fire, hotter and more terrible than the one just experienced. Never mind. Curiosity seekers have carried away already all that was left of the memorial event, even to pieces of charcoal. The cause of the crime was that Henry Vance was a deputy policeman. In the course of his duty, was called to arrest Henry Smith for being drunk and disorderly. The Negro was unruly, and Vance was forced to use his club. The Negro swore vengeance and several times assaulted Vance. In his greed for revenge last Thursday, he grabbed up the little girl and committed the crime. The father is prostrated with grief, and the mother now lies at death's door. But she has lived to see the slayer of her innocent babe suffer the most horrible death that could ever be conceived. But what I was going to say a while ago, if they trying to say that he went to hell, that's a lie. That's a lie. Another fire hotter and more terrible than the one he just experienced. Honey, that murder that they did to him, yeah, that absolved the baby that was murdered, the little girl that was murdered. I don't even believe he did it. But I digress. Torture beyond description. Words to describe the awful torture inflicted upon Smith cannot be found. The Negro, for a long time after starting on the journey to Paris, did not realize his plight. At last, when he was told that he must die by slow torture, he begged for protection. His agony was awful. He pleaded and writhed in bodily and mental pain. Scarcely had the train reached Paris than his torture commenced. His clothes were torn off piecemeal and scattered in the crowd, people catching the shreds and putting them away as mementos. The child's father, her brother, and 2 uncles then gathered about the Negro as he lay fastened to the torture platform and thrust hot irons into his quivering flesh. It was horrible. The man dying by slow torture in the midst of smoke from his own burning flesh. Every groan from the fiend, every contortion of his body was cheered by the thickly packed crowd of 10,000 white people. The mass of beams, 600 yards in diameter, the scaffold being the center. After burning the feet and legs, the hot irons, plenty of fresh ones being at hand, were rolled up and down Smith's stomach, back, and arms. Then the eyes were burned out. Then the eyes were burned out and irons were thrust down his throat. The men of the Vance family having wreaked vengeance. The crowd piled all kinds of constable stuff around the scaffold, poured oil on it and set it afire. The Negro rolled and tossed out of the mass, only to be pushed back by the people nearest him. He tossed out again and was roped and pulled back. Hundreds of people turned away, but the vast crowd still looked calmly on. People were here from every part of this section. They came from Dallas, Fort Worth, Sherman, Denison, Bonham, Texarkana, Fort Smith, Arkansas, and a party of 15 came from Hempstead County, Arkansas, where he was captured. Every train that came in was loaded to its utmost capacity, and there were demands at many points for special trains to bring the people here to see the unparalleled punishment for an unparalleled crime. When the news of the burning went over the country like wildfire, at every country town, ambles boomed forth the announcement. Should have been in an asylum. It may not be amiss in connection with this awful affair, and proof of our assertion that Smith was an imbecile, to give the testimony of a well-known colored minister who lived at Paris, Texas at the time of the lynching. He was a witness to the awful scenes there enacted and attempted, in the name of God and humanity, to interfere in the program. He barely escaped with his life, was driven out of the city, and became an exile because of his actions. Reverend King was in New York about the middle of February, and he was there interviewed for a daily paper for that city. And we quote his account as an eyewitness of the affair. This is what he said. I was ridden out of Paris on a rail because I was the only man in Lamar County to raise my voice against the lynching of Smith. I opposed the illegal measures before the arrival of Henry Smith as a prisoner, and I was warned that I might meet his fate if I was not careful. But the sense of justice made me bold, and when I saw the poor wretch trembling with fear, it got so near him that I could hear his teeth chatter. I determined to stand by him to the last. I hated him for his crime, but two crimes do not make a virtue. And in the brief conversation I had with Smith, I was more firmly convinced than ever that he was irresponsible. I had known Smith for years, and there were times when Smith was out of his head for weeks. 2 years ago, I made an effort to have him put in an asylum, but the white people were trying to fasten the murder of a young colored girl upon him and would not listen. For days before the murder of the little Vance girl, Smith was out of his head and dangerous. He had just undergone an attack of delirium tremens and was in no condition to be allowed at large. He realized his condition, for I spoke with him not 3 weeks ago, and in answer to my exhortations, he promised to reform. The next time I saw him was on the day of his execution. Drink did it, he sobbed. Then bowing his face in his hands, he asked, is it true? Did I kill her? Oh my God, my God. For a moment, he seemed to forget the awful fate that awaited him, and his body swayed to and fro with grief that he possibly could have killed the little girl. He was drunk, and he was an imbecile. Someone seized me by the shoulder and hurled me back, and Smith fell writhing to the ground in terror as 4 men seized his arms to drag him to the float on which he was to be exhibited before he was finally burned at the stake. I followed the procession and wept aloud as I saw little children of my own race follow the unfortunate man and taunt him with jeers. Even at the stake, children of both sexes and both colors gathered in groups. And when the father of the murdered child raised the hissing iron with which he was about to torture the helpless victim, the children became as frantic as the grown people and struggled forward to obtain places of advantage. The white kids did. Ran. The black kids was running along when they were seeing it happening. But once it started, I can't believe black kids ran up to the front to look, to see. It was terrible. One little tot, scarcely older than little Myrtle Vance, clapped her baby hands as her father held her on his shoulders above the heads of the people. For God's sake, I shouted, Send the children home. No, no, shouted 100 maddened voices. Let them learn a lesson. Let them teach them. Let them learn what to do. That's why white kids know what to do. White people know what to do. I love children, but as I looked on about the little faces distorted with passion and the bloodshot eyes of the cruel parents who held them high in their arms, I thank God that I have none of my own. As the hot iron sank deep into poor Henry's flesh, a hideous yell rent the air, and with a sound as terrible as a cry of lost souls on Judgment Day, 20,000 maddened people took up the victim's cry of agony, and a prolonged howl of maddened glee rent the air. They went from 10,000 to 20,000. And as he was screaming out in pain, they were screaming out in glee. He's screaming out in pain, they screaming out in glee, just loving it, ravenous, reveling in the torture that they was inflicting. No one was himself now. Every man, woman, and child in that awful crowd was worked up to a greater frenzy than that which actuated Smith's horrible crime. The people were capable of any new atrocity now, and as Smith's yells became more and more frequent, it was difficult to hold the crowd back. So anxious were the savages to participate in the sickening tortures. For half an hour, I tried to pray as the beads of agony rolled down my forehead and bathed my face. For an instant, a hush spread over the people. I could stand no more, and with a superhuman effort, dashed through the compact mass of humanity and stood at the foot of the Bolden scaffold. In the name of God, I cried, I command you to cease this torture. The heavy butt of a Winchester rifle descended on my head, and I fell to the ground. Rough hands seized me, and angry men bore me away, and I was thankful. At the outskirts of the crowd, I was attacked again, and then several men, no doubt glad to get away from the fearful place, escorted me to my home, where I was allowed to take a small amount of clothing. A jeering crowd gathered without, and when I appeared at the door, ready hands seized me, and I was placed upon a rail, and with curses and oaths, taken to the railway station and placed on the train. As the train moved out, someone thrust a roll of bills into my hand and said, God bless you, but it was no use. When asked if he should ever return to Paris, Mr. King said, I should never go south again. The impressions of that awful day will stay with me forever. I think that's it. That's it for tonight. And we at chapter 4. We can't never forget. We can't ever forget again. We don't forget enough. We can't forget again. So yeah, thank y'all for doing that. Thank y'all for that. We'll pick it up tomorrow. We'll start with chapter 4 tomorrow. But I want you to process this tonight. Everybody process this. Don't go to sleep with this on your heart. Process it. Deal with it. So we can continue on in our healing. And it still remains, in my opinion, that white folks are the cause of all our trauma. They're the cause of our dedicated ignorance, our better known as self-hatred towards ourselves and our others. But we can't hate and we can't harm others. We just have to process this and get the fuck away from their motherfucking asses and teach our babies. Let our babies know that the same way you warn them about Pookie and Ray Ray and Tyrone, let them know too about Ken, Brad, Karen, Sabrina, all of they motherfucking asses, Becky. Let them know. Let them know. They deserve to know. So I want y'all to keep some gratitude in your heart also. And keep a song in your heart. Keep your vibrations high. But please process this. What we learning here, we can't keep this on our heart. It'll make you bitter. It'll make you so bitter. But vengeance is not ours. Vengeance don't belong to me. The Bible says vengeance belongs to the Lord. And that may very well be so. But vengeance belongs to my ancestors too. And with that right there, I can process this and let nature take its course. I can let nature take its course. I won't stand in nobody's way for receiving the consequences they got for this debt that no one has tried to pay. No one has tried to make amends. No one has tried to right this wrong. I can get my black ass out the way and let them receive whatever judgment they got coming to them for this right here. Babylon is falling. Let this motherfucker fall. Don't you run out there and pick up a pencil or a pencil. You let this motherfucker fall. Every column is standing on. Let it fall. I love y'all. And I'll see y'all tomorrow, 12 o'clock noon. We still on our powernomics. It's time for us to get some more action. We all about action now. Our garden, teaching our babies, learning, unlearning and relearning. We all about action now. We got to catch up with the politics. Our people out there fighting also. And so we got to do our part too. That's where powernomics come in at. Dr. Claude Anderson, he wrote this for us. We're already 20 years late. Allegedly. It's 2025 allegedly. We're already 25 years late. Now that we have a Pope in Rome, what can we do for Albany? Well, I'm still trying to find out what we finna do for black people. Yeah, Calcutta bottled water. But I love y'all. And I'm finna go and process this and and keep moving forward. Keep striving, keep moving forward. We will heal. We will heal. Don't doubt that. Peace and power to the people.